Up next, we have a presentation from Mandy Parker, General Manager of Waste and Environment, regarding Partners for Climate Protection. Ms. Parker. The floor is yours.
I can talk loud too. Perfect. We're good? Perfect. Thank you. My name is Mandy Parker, and I have Mark Swenson with me. We're just going to go through the Partners for Climate Protection and the greenhouse gas emission reduction target and a request to perhaps have that reduced. Oh, there's a side button.
Yeah, there you are.
Thanks. Perfect. Okay, so Partners for Climate Protection, or PCP, is a voluntary program that's a consortium of the Green Municipal Fund, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and ECLI, which is the Local Governments for Sustainability. The City of Lethbridge joined the PCP in 2007 under the Environmental Services team at that time. Fast forward to 2017, when the city was contacted by the PCP to find out where we were at with progressing through the milestones. In 2018, we conducted our baseline inventory for the corporate and community, which completed milestone 1. Milestone 2 was setting a target that was proposed for the Community Issues Committee on March 2nd, 2020. The target that was proposed was a 20% reduction based on city projects, and there was an additional 15% that was suspected to automatically happen with the conversion from coal to natural gas at our generation plants. This would be based on the 2018 baseline by 2030. On March 9th, 2020, the official resolution was debated and amended to be bold and achieve 40% reduction. Being part of the Partners for Climate Protection allows us an opportunity for grant funding. It gives us kind of a leg up in terms of the Green Municipal Fund and anything that FCM has. So I'm just going to pass it over to Mark.
Thank you. So stemming from the 2020 Council direction of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 40%, you can see the baseline of 2018, our corporate emissions were 167,000 tons of CO2, and our target, that 40% reduction, puts it at 100,000 tons. See on the right-hand side, you can see the breakdown from 2023 where our corporate emissions really come from. So it's from waste, so the Waste and Recovery Center, the landfill out there, accounts for about 57% of our emissions. Electricity, the electricity we use in our corporate buildings, is about 27%. So how are we doing? So if you look on the left, you can see the 2018 baseline of 167,000 tons of CO2, and our 2023, you can see it generally trend downward to 2023, where we reached 139,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. And that represents about a 16.9% reduction in our emissions from baseline. Now, following the direction from the 2020 direction, there was a team developed, or a team set up by 14 municipal departments and led by Waste and Environment. And their goal was to develop initiatives that would reduce our corporate emissions by that 40%, so we could reach that target. Now, what the team did was they came up with 22 initiatives that combined could potentially reach that 40%. And given the fiscal constraints that we're in, we've got 4 options that are presented. Maybe is that better? Perfect. Okay. There we go. So option A is we'll reach that 40%. So this includes all of the 22 initiatives that the GRIT team came up with, that they developed. And it would combined account for about 40% reduction. It comes at a cost. There's approximately $83 million capital cost and a $6.7 million operating cost. Option B also achieves that 40% reduction. This includes some of those 22 initiatives, the 15 high return on investment initiatives, which includes a heavy part of that includes renewable energy. So purchase of green energy or green credits is where that comes in. Option C meets about a 20%, approximately 20% reduction. We call it partial implementation. And this includes the same initiatives as option B, except for this option does not include the purchase of green credits or that renewable energy. So that's the one difference between option B and C. Option D would get us to about 17.8%. It's an estimate. And it's kind of, we titled it business as usual. It really takes into account the existing CIP projects that are there, that some have been done, some have not been completed at this point. So there's some existing CIP projects, as well as those required to maintain some levels of service at the water and wastewater treatment plants. So that too does come with a cost, even just our business as usual does. And what we're recommending at this time is that we do reduce our target, our 2030 target, from 40% down to 20%, and that we move forward with option C, that partial implementation. And that's to show that the City of Lethbridge is still working towards reducing our emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions, but also taking into account the fiscal restraints and constraints that we do find ourselves in. That's all we've got.
Thank you very much for your presentation. At this time, I understand we have a couple of people who are registered to speak, and I'll call Joan McNeil to make her presentation. Keep in mind you have 5 minutes, and to respect everyone's time, we'll keep that at 5 minutes for everyone. So I appreciate you coming. Joan, Ms. McNeil, the floor is yours.
I congratulate the city for acknowledging that a 40% reduction in emissions by 2030, which they committed to in 2020 under the Partners for Climate Protection Program, would require a massive tax increase and a severe reduction in the quality of life in our city. What are we going to live without? Maybe water and wastewater treatment, which is by far the largest energy use in the city of Lethbridge. I hope the city has realized that whether we consider a 100% reduction or a 40% reduction or even a 20% reduction, the Partners for Climate Protection Program is a global public-private partnership. It is nothing more than a sophisticated marketing scheme designed to direct multiple millions of our tax dollars into the pockets of the PCP's ultra-wealthy multinational corporate funders. Achieving the proposed emissions reductions will bankrupt our city and will have no measurable benefit for the climate. The real local environmental, social, and economic needs of our city will be neglected. All this is being done without community consent or full cost disclosure. The current ask of $23 million is the latest in a very long list of expenditures made since 2007 under the direction of the Partners for Climate Protection Program. The predicted 2.2% reduction amounts to about $1 million for each 0.1% reduction in emissions. Have city staff provided a detailed and comprehensive cost-benefit analysis of Partners for Climate Protection spending since 2007? This should include a full account of all direct and indirect costs under the program, compared with a scientifically accurate assessment of benefits. For example, electric vehicles are not zero-emissions vehicles, And so-called green energy comes at a very high price for both the environment and the economy. Can city staff demonstrate specific tangible benefits from spending under this program? Have they documented specific benefits to the climate resulting from all the PCP spending? Are local environmental, economic, and social issues being neglected while we chase the phantom of climate change? Do Lethbridge City Councillors know that getting out of the Partners for Climate Protection program is easy? Emissions reduction programs are not legally required and they don't help the environment. All Council needs to do is rescind this resolution in Council, notify the Federation of Canadian Municipalities of withdrawal, and immediately stop unnecessary climate mitigation spending. The municipality of Thorhold, Ontario, withdrew from the PCP program in 2024 after they assessed the costs and concluded that the PCP's program's international objectives did not align with Thorhold's local priorities. I suggest that Council can start by introducing a motion to pause PCP activities and commission a review of all FCM-ICLEI related spending since enrollment. I ask them to remember that local control is always better than global control. Thank you.
Thank you. I just remind it's decorum in this chamber is that we don't applaud or shout or scream or yell or anything. That's just kind of the way we do it here. Thank you very much. We have our next speaker is Viviana Lartiga. If you can come forward. Once again, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to come to this committee meeting and just present my question. I really just have a question regarding the PCP program. I'm curious when the corporate sustainability team will publish the 2023 emissions data because that is missing, and I'd like to know when you will disclose to the public how much of their taxpayer dollars are going towards these initiatives. That's everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will ask now if there are any other members of the public who want to make a presentation here today. Please step forward and give us your name.
My name is Corinne Duke Carroll, and thank you for having me here this afternoon. Respectfully, this partnership was signed by municipal councillors in 2007. That was 18 years ago. Fast forward, a lot has been changed in terms of our understanding of climate change, the language that's being used, and respectfully, I think we've all come a long way in understanding really what climate change is and what it means. With understanding our tax dollars will be transferred to corporate global investment funds. Is that correct? That's a question I pose. We're requesting full disclosure on the funds received the investment monies, how the investments will be accounted for, reporting to of the funds, and who they are then redirecting the money to. Next question, how are the funds outside of this municipality for a project have any benefit to the people that are here in Lethbridge? We request City Council to produce the documents, studies, or environmental impact assessments that will clearly show how this will affect climate change in Lethbridge. Furthermore, we will be asking for a public consultation, tender process, contracts, and allocation of funds to each national and international corporation involved. These requests will also be submitted in writing to City Council shortly from this meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public down front here? State your name, please. Again, 5 minutes.
My name is Dave Garrett, and I want to say I appreciate the councillors here. I recognize that they're dedicating part of their lives to serving the public, and that we're all in this together. I think a lot of Albertans have have an idea of politicians based on the government that we have in Ottawa, and it's not fair to extend those thoughts to the councillors here in Lethbridge. From what I have read about the Partners for Climate Protection program, it seems like a gigantic waste of money. Some folks have asked specific questions, and I'd like to see those questions answered along the basic lines of what benefit are we getting for our money. $23 million is going to be spent. What am I getting for my share of that $23 million? I would request that the city withdraws from this climate protection program. From what I've seen, we are not getting value for our money. It's all based on the notion that the carbon dioxide that everybody in this room is currently exhaling is somehow toxic to the environment. Doesn't that strike you all as being rather silly? Let's stick with advances in science and realize that somebody's been pulling the wool over our eyes, and we need to stop it. I've just been told that there's a 5.1% property tax increase coming up this year. Let's save some money and stop this foolishness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but that's just sort of the policy we have here as far as cheering. Who else would like to make a presentation? Step forward, please. Give us your name.
Pierre Gaulin, I'm a citizen of Lethbridge. I consider myself an environmentalist. My motto is reduce, reuse, recycle. I'm a mechanical engineer, amongst other degrees. And in the last few decades, talking about carbon print and CO2 has become very fashionable. And it's really easy to get emotional about those issues. Let's save the earth, whatever the cost. But for perspective, I think it's important to look at the data. I'm kind of a data nerd a little bit. And first, as others mentioned today, we have to consider, is CO2 really harmful? At the level that it is now, I don't believe it's harmful to human life. It's actually needed for trees, plants, our agriculture. And it's been shown that with the CO2 level going up, the earth has been constantly getting greener, and it's shown on satellite pictures. So considering CO2 as pollutant, I think is misleading. And we have to consider that while China builds a few coal plants every month, we have to consider what percentage of the CO2 emissions come from Canada. I don't know if you know what percentage of CO2 makes up the atmosphere, but it's 0.04%. And it's in history, that's a low level right now. And 4% of that is attributed to human activity. Canada's contribution to global human-induced emission is approximately 1.6%. That's not even considering the fact that Canada is a carbon sink because it absorbs a lot of CO2 through our forests. So when we put all those numbers together, Canada's emissions represent roughly 0.0000256% of the total atmospheric CO2. What do you think the percentage of CO2 emission would be for Lethbridge? I did a quick calculation, conservative, because I think it would be less than that because we're not an industrial city. But this is the percentage of CO2 that's emitted by Lethbridge that contributes to global warming. 0.000000064%. So given those numbers, I don't consent to my tax money going through that program, and I think no other program should be looked at in that towards reducing CO2. And I want to make it clear that I refuse that my money, through my taxes, be used on that program. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to make a presentation? Step forward, give your name. And again, 5 minutes.
My name's Art Stott. I'm a long-term Lethbridge resident. I have been out of town for a while. I'd just like to add my voice to those that are asking the council to seriously develop an accountability for how money is spent on these environmental projects that I know Ottawa is interested in performing or pursuing. But as a council, I think you need to be accountable to the people here. And I'd like to see the council seriously consider how they could do the accountability to show people what we're spending money on and what the last 15 years has resulted in terms of climate change that we've affected positively or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another speaker. Come forward, give your name.
Heidebrecht. I just have a couple of questions. Would I be able to ask Mark, and is it Mandy?
You can ask the questions to us, and we
Okay,
may
sure. Okay. So my first one was, like, when you're talking about emissions, does that just mean carbon dioxide, or is there other pollutants?
We'll ask that after when you're done.
Okay. And then the other one was GRIT, that group. I was wondering who employs them.
Okay.
And then the other one was talking about credits and some back and forth. I just wondered about some clarification for that. I just don't understand it. And, well, we're talking about money today, and I just wondered, are the books open? Can we see how much the council, and that's came far before you guys came on board, has put into the Partners for Climate Protection, or since you joined the Canadian Federation of Municipalities in 2007? Those would be some of my questions. Thank you for your efforts, and I trust you'll be looking into this.
Thank you. We have another person who would like to make a presentation. Please give your name.
Hi, my name is Nick Shearer, and I just had a question, actually. I was just wondering, when and how do the questions asked today get answered?
Thank you. We will try to answer some of those questions as we go along. Move along to the next person.
I'm Leona Harper. I'm a citizen of Lethbridge too. And I'm Leona Harper. I'm a citizen of Lethbridge and have been for many, many years. I also am opposed to our contribution of $23 million towards this fund. I think that, like someone mentioned, I think that money could be used more locally. And for example, you already know that our wastewater treatment comprises 57% of our global, CO2 emissions or whatever. Maybe we need to put some of that $23 million into refining and upkeeping and modifying those kind of things that are the most detrimental, so that we ourselves can take care of our problems rather than having to outsource our money to a global corporation that probably loses a good percentage of that money just in administration. Anyways, that's my point.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make a presentation? Second time, anybody else like to make a presentation this afternoon? And for a third time, we see none. So we'll open this up for questions from members of council. First off, Councillor Middleton Hope.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the people who made presentations today. They were heartfelt, well thought out, and well articulated. I too have many of the same kinds of questions and concerns that all of you have. I would like to ask our administration, first and foremost, and let's call this what it is. This is an initiative that, although perhaps is well-intentioned, asks our city to either collapse other, arguably equally important initiatives like water and wastewater mitigation in favor of this initiative, or increase taxes. My question to our administration would be, how much money is this going to cost and where is the money going to come from? I have statements that I'll make, Mr. Chair, later on, but that's my first question to administration.
Okay. Ms. Parker or Mr. Sanchez, or who would like to respond?
Yeah, I'm just going to start answering that question, and then I'm going to pass it to Mrs. Parker so she can expand. Just a little bit of a clarification. When you look at most of these initiatives that are being presented today as part of the option that is being proposed, are initiatives that are also part of the Energy Conservation Master Plan, are also initiatives that are part of process improvements that we're doing at the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant. And when I say this I'm going to give a couple of examples that come to mind. We might need to do retrofits to the boilers at any of the plants that we have, and these retrofits include replacing all equipment that is actually using more natural gas or more fuel for new equipment that will have a less consumption, therefore reducing their carbon footprint, and at the same time bringing revenue to the city in terms of less fuel being spent. So when we look at the $20.9 million, we're not approving that today. Today is just to reduce the target, and there will be future projects that are going to come in the future as part of the new CIP program, and those projects are going to be tied to a cost-benefit analysis. I will say 95%, or if not close to all the projects that are being now explored, are going to be those that will have an ROI related to them. When we look at all the options that we had on the 40%, there were others that we do agree that it does not make sense to go and do those, like purchase carbon offsets or carbon credits in order to meet a target. That is not what we believe we should be doing. That's why we're bringing this back in order to reduce that gap. Another element too is every time those projects are going to come in, there will be a consideration. I'm using the landfill gas, also that's another clarification. 47% is not related to the wastewater treatment plant or the water treatment plant. That 47% that we saw in the graph is mostly from the waste and recycling center or the landfill, is where we generate most of the methane that is actually accounts for the majority. There is an opportunity to reclaim as part of these projects that methane and actually reuse it, and some of the projects will be to produce renewable natural gas that we can actually reuse within our process, or there is a program where many other municipalities are actually claiming the carbon offsets and getting revenue for not generating that by flaring or doing another type of process that will include additional revenue for the city. So I wanted to do that introduction before I pass it to Mandy, and she can actually expand if there is any more specific questions in terms of what we're trying to propose today.
A lot of the projects that we have proposed, some of them are CIP that we're currently working on. For example, the greenhouse gas emissions at the landfill. Not only are we regulated or could be regulated, we're trying to keep them low enough so we don't have to pay and be regulated. So that project ties into this, that it's a benefit to this program. We don't pay the Partners for Climate Protection any money. It is a volunteer program. It's almost like a flow-through program where we're doing our projects and we're accounting the reduction in the efficiency type projects that we do to this program, and it also keeps us in line for funding for other projects that would benefit from greenhouse gas emission reduction. So the PCP, they get no money from us. These are projects that would come forward through the Energy Conservation Master Plan, CIP operating budget that would be pre-approved, would be constructed and tendered with our local policies and programs. So there's an opportunity to keep those projects local and or regional, however that works for whatever contracts awarded. For those, there is no money that goes to the Partners for Climate Protection. In terms of some of the other projects, when you saw that one graph that showed landfill gas and electricity and natural gas, we're looking to be more efficient. And so reducing the cost of our operating budget, those are some of the programs that are included in this. So when we do a building retrofit and do an LED light retrofit, say for all of City Hall, that will reduce our our electric consumption for a long period of time. And so those are the types of projects that are beneficial to this. We're just kind of capturing it in an emission reduction to keep us in line for funding for other projects that are included in that. Does that answer your question?
If I may add.
No, actually it doesn't. But I appreciate both perspectives. What the question was, and I understand that we're attempting to identify and implement efficiencies across the board, which makes absolute sense. What I don't understand is there is a significant cost to this. That cost is borne by the taxpayers. At the end of the day, you've provided us with 4 options. Is there a 5th option whereby we do not spend that? We do not ask of Mr. Matthews to go looking for another $20 million?
So short answer to that, this will come either, we are trying to look at the synergies. And when I say we're trying to look at the synergies is these projects will need to happen in most of the cases because as Mrs. Parker explained before, those are efficiency projects that we need to do in the plants in order to reduce our operating cost. Mm-hmm. And actually it's going to translate in the future in avoid having additional, not tax, but in this case, utility rates, because most of this work is happening at the plants or at the utilities at the landfill. So we're trying to reduce our operating costs, so to try to contain future increases. We could say this here, we're done participating as part of the PCP program, but these projects, most of them, if not all, will still come back as part of the CIP cycle because we need to do process improvements in the plants and in the different buildings that we own. We're still going to achieve. We don't want to spend or to do additional expenditures that are not going to have a return for the residents or taxpayers or ratepayers. We just want to do the ones that we know are going to have a benefit for the city and for everybody. That's the reason we're here today, because keeping the 40% is not going to allow us. So again, if I can reiterate, these projects that we have today are projects that are mostly for process improvement and efficiencies across the corporation. So they are going to be presented in the future as part of the next CIP cycle in order for us to try to avoid further increases into our operating costs.
There's nothing specific to say that a project is brought forward because of the PCP. It's just a benefit for being in this program. It's brought forward for other reasons.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. From an engineering perspective, it makes very good sense. From an economic perspective, which is what the people in the audience have asked and which is what I am asking, is this costing us money? Is it going to cost us more money? And where is this money coming from?
Okay, so I can try to explain that with a past example that will demonstrate why we're doing this. So there is a project that we did quite a few years ago that actually we are still trying to see if we can get an economic benefit further to what we have today. If Council or SPC recall, quite a few years we did the conversion from LED lights on the street lights across the city. That project resulted in an immediate savings the following year of almost $1 million in electric cost for our operations program. So that's one example where, yes, we did an investment to retrofit to LED lights, and in some cases, this is where FCM comes into the equation because they have incentives for people to try to do this work. So sometimes we apply for grants, and we might get half of the money, we might get a percentage, so our cost is less, and at the end of the day, we get a return for that investment. So the street lights is a really good example of that one there. The other one will be on the landfill gas, like Mandy explained before. In that particular one, having the landfill gas required us to do quite a considerable amount of monitoring and reporting back to the province, and also could have an implication. If we exceed the threshold or the cap that exists today, that means we will need to pay for that additional amount that is on top of the cap. By doing the landfill gas capture, We can actually process that landfill gas. We can get credits for the amount that we are not putting into the environment. We get that additional credit, and we avoid paying money for these projects. Most of these projects, they have a return of investment, and that's why we bring them forward. Every time we bring each one of these particular projects, we have a payback period. There is a benefit attached to the CAP programs, and we are only trying to bring what makes sense and what will avoid us to add additional cost. Mandy also explained to the PCP, the money is not going anywhere else. The money goes to tender process that are done in the city, and the contractors, for the most part, are local or could be from around the province, Calgary, Edmonton. In some cases, yes, could be from BC as well. There is whoever has the technology in order to do the changes that we need to do in order to implement the efficiencies process. There is a consequence to, or an additional benefit, which is reducing the carbon tax. And that's what we're just trying to link the two to explain the rationale why we're going the path we're going.
Thank you for your efforts to explain that. I'm not going to hijack the meeting any further, Mr. Chair. I'll cede the question to my colleague.
Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Chair. So my understanding of this is just simply a lens by which we look at projects. And I know it's not specifically under this, but if we look at the Rain Barrel project, we could look at this as an environmental project, but it's really a project to save residents money on water and to stop overuse of the water treatment plant, which has an economic benefit. Would that be how we're actually looking at this, is when we're going to have to do work on these buildings anyways, and we bring in something more efficient, just as an afterthought, we also get a check over here as well?
At it. It wouldn't necessarily apply to water per se,
no,
like the use of water, but natural gas and electricity, yes.
So these are things we would be doing because they're going to save money, because they're better and more efficient ways, and then it just happens to link up with this program. And since we're just focusing on this program today, we've got the numbers pulled out, but that's not the main purpose of this.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, if I remember back to how we came to the 40%, I know I was on council when that happened. It was not the recommendation in any way of administration. We can blame this all on Councillor Kaufman. He basically just laid down a challenge going, hey, wouldn't 40% be better? And that was what got voted in without much discussion that day. So at any time, did administration support the 40%, or is the 20% being brought forward a much more logical perspective from a citywide perspective?
When we presented it in 2020, our recommendation was the 20% because we had a lot. We didn't do the top-down approach and pick a number. We actually built the projects first that we were going to be doing anyway, and came up with the 20%. And so we had that then, but went back to rework it to see what we could do to get to 40, and it just isn't feasible.
Yeah, it was more of a challenge than anything, and you're right, the feasibility has not been there. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Well, you're up here. I mean, the people have brought their concerns about. We want to see where this money is going to, or where it is, or where is. In response to that, where they want to see where the money is, what can you tell us?
We'd have to look at the individual projects that go through our tendering process that are publicly published, and look at those.
So you're not hiding anything right now.
No.
And there's a way that we can find information.
Yes.
So if I'm just going to add a little bit more into that, every single procurement process that we have is a public document. All the information is on the city website, bids and tender. All the different people that submit a bid is also there. And when we come back, we always do reports on the CAP. We're coming into a new CAP cycle. We typically close the loop for most of those. Most of the information in terms of procurement, if people have any questions, that could be supplied, but it's all public. It's public. You go to even the annual report, there are elements there that consider what our expenditures and the capital is for each one of the departments that we have in the city.
I will say, for me, I use 311 all the time, for my own information. Is it fair to say that if people have some serious questions about what we've been talking about today, calling 311 will get you to someone who can answer those questions? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're highly qualified, highly educated, and they know who to send you to the right person and to give you the answer that you're looking for. Fair enough to say?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from my colleagues? I see none. Oh, I'm sorry, you do. There you are, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Go. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. I'm stuck. Thank you very much, Chair Campbell. So, Ms. Parker, thank you very much for this, and certainly thank you very much to everyone who came forward from the audience to speak with this and share their concerns. Ms. Parker, how and are we considering the impact of any potential tariffs on these plans? Are those a concern? Are we looking forward that? Do we need to be looking at what tariffs might come in on this?
I think that goes down to the individual project when they're conceptualized and designed, and then they're gone out for tender. That's when each individual project manager of their projects would take a look at that and address those at that time.
Okay, and those individual projects then come back to council for approval. We would certainly be taking a look at those with the tariff or any other increased cost expectations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when we're going through the tendering process, if there's something that needs to be done, the purchasing department makes sure that we're getting the best value for our dollar.
Okay. And then I'm not sure if you can answer this, or maybe this would be something that goes to Mr. Sanchez. Option C includes $20.9 million in capital costs. Has this amount already been committed through previously approved CIP projects?
Not fully. There are some CIP projects in there, and there's some future CIP projects, or potential proposed, however you want to look at that. So each individual project would come forward and be approved on an individual basis.
Okay, and which CIP projects are there that are currently approved under this?
Mark, can I?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Really, it's the landfill gas and capture and combustion system that Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Parker already spoke about, and some of the increases in organics diversion you've seen over the last few years are organics collection. Those were projects that have happened or are continuing to see improvements. Some of those. And then some of the implementation of some of the energy audit programs at the wastewater and water treatment plants. So as the upgrades that are going on, Mr. Sanchez had mentioned, as we replace old inefficient equipment with new equipment, regardless of the equipment that the new equipment, it's going to be more efficient. And we'll see those savings or those emissions reductions through those pieces.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that as we are going through these, the ones that we have already done or the ones that are already planned for, we're already seeing energy efficiency savings and a reduction in our emissions to start with. So that's just naturally happening because technology is changing and it's improving and it's reducing what we're emitting.
Correct.
Perfect. And then I guess just along with that, because we did get the question from the audience, and I'll ask this last question and then step out and come back in. Do and when will we publish any emissions data as well as any data in reduction in emissions that we've seen?
Yeah, pass that back to Ms. Parker.
So every year our department publishes an annual report that we put online on the City of Lethbridge website, and we have the emission reductions in there.
Okay, and when does that get published? Approximately what month?
It varies. It's typically around April, May. We should be getting the 2024 report online shortly.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'll step out for now.
Councillor Acting Mayor Palladino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. The three of you mentioned this, or at least touched on it, the initiative called a landfill gas collection and combustion system. What does this look like on the ground in real life? Is it flare stacks or?
So we have a bunch of wells that are installed underground in the landfill, and they have an underground piping system that goes to a gas plant, and then there is a flare stack it's an enclosed flare that will convert the methane to CO2 and burn off burn off the methane.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm not sure if Ms. Park, if you can answer this, or Mr. Sanchez. So not that long ago, Council laid down a policy around asset management and the next capital budget. We have set and recommend very tight controls around capital budgets, that we're going to have very limited money. It has to go to asset management. It has to go to maintaining our assets. We're looking for things that will reduce operational costs. So what you are recommending here, how will it, or will it, and if it will, how will it tie in with that very limited capital budget we have, and how we are looking for a capital budget that is only on asset management and only that will reduce operating costs?
So that's a really good question, and that's something we have been working internally with Mr. Matthews, the CFO, in terms of the next cycle and even the current cycle. Most of the projects that will be presented, they will go through a screening process from the inception to the end before they are presented to City Council. And part of that screening process includes returns, cost-benefit analysis, ensuring that we are doing projects that are needs and not wants. And when I say that, is in terms of the operations that we have, we want to ensure, using the wastewater treatment plant is a good example. Some of the equipment that we are going to have for retrofits or increased capacity are newer technology that typically is somewhere between 30 to 40% less energy intensive. And when I say that, they can do more volume for less energy being used, natural gas or electricity. They are going to give us a double win in this case. We can reduce, or actually could be even more than that, we can reduce our operating costs, translating into savings. We can also process more volume, which will add more capacity to what we have, and we will have a reduction in our carbon footprint. So that's the plus, and that will count towards the target that we have here. So as I said before, these are going to happen as part of our process improvement process, and asset management is the key component. That's why we're creating an asset management plan for each one of the departments in order to ensure that we go through the same process to evaluate.
And the asset management plan will be essentially what we look at. Each capital budget that you bring forward will be reviewed in that, and then each council, and when it comes to council, each project will be reviewed by that council during that operating budget. So even if this is recommended today, there are many steps and many processes to make sure it's going to be the best cost, and we're going to create the best efficiencies we can.
100%. This is the first step before we bring anything else for council for future approval.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
So,
oh, sorry about that.
Just to bring forward some other questions that we had coming out of the gallery. We talk about emissions and reporting on the emissions. Are we just reporting on CO2 emissions, or are we reporting on other pollutants as well?
It's a CO2 equivalent, so methane is converted into a CO2 equivalent, so it's all reported out on CO2 equivalent.
Okay. And then we had a question about the GRIT team and who they are employed by.
The GRIT team, those were department members from the city of Lethbridge who worked together to come up with these projects so that it was an agreeable process, and projects that weren't imposed on them, that were actually projects that they could deliver on. And so we included the departments.
Okay, and were those projects approved by Lethbridge City Council, or are those projects coming back to Lethbridge City Council?
Those would be projects coming forward to Lethbridge City Council.
Okay, and then there was a question around the clarification of credits. Could you just speak to that a little bit?
I'm not sure where to start with the question for the clarification of credits, because there's a few different things. If you're referring to the carbon credits that some municipalities are actually purchasing to become net zero, they're buying somebody's offsets. We can generate carbon credits from our reductions and have the opportunity to sell those as well. So for the greenhouse gas project out at the landfill, we can register that as a project and have carbon credits so that that we can generate some revenue.
Okay, and we're not purchasing any credits at this
No.
point? Okay, we are a credit generator?
That would be fair to say, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just want to, just to probably explain a little bit in terms for the general public on the carbon credits. We could see this, as Mandy explained a few seconds ago. We have two options. If we surpass the threshold that I mentioned before, at that time, we will need to go to the market and buy carbon or pay for carbon credits in order to be under that. We're not there yet. Those projects that we have done in the past is what is allowing us to be below that threshold. And on top of that, when you look at the credits that we are getting or we will get for the offset on the landfill, that's money that many other communities that have a landfill have already been doing, and we are entering into that game where we can actually reuse or sell those credits and reuse the funding back into our projects. And that not necessarily is projects for carbon offsets in the future, but can also be for any projects such as a landfill development cost. As we start to fill the landfill cells, we can use that funding to offset that cost and avoid future rate increases for users of the landfill.
Councillor Carlson.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, and thank you. And I had some trouble connecting earlier on, so I hope I'm not plowing ground that's already been covered. But just for my clarification, the request in front of committee and then council is to change our target. And I think Councillor Crowson sort of said council threw out a 40% challenge target several years ago. And just a yes or no from either Mr. Sanchez or Ms. Parker. What you're showing is that you can achieve that, but it's going to cost $83 million. Is that correct?
That's the estimate, yes.
Thank you. And so what you're recommending is to go with option C, which is the 20% reduction that was originally put forward by administration at a cost of, I've lost it, I think it was $20 million, 23, if I can find it again, $20 million. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the estimate of the projects that were proposed.
Thank you. And if we said reductions be damned, actually increase CO2, we're still going to have to invest in these assets, correct?
Correct.
So we're not going to say the same. So basically what we're doing is we are upgrading our assets and at the same time trying to save some money, same way I do in my house by replacing inefficient products with efficient products to save money. And maybe it's a feel good to some people, but to me it's pretty important. We're also reducing our emissions, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I think has caused a bunch of confusion is the climate partners. We don't pay them. We don't cut a big check to some global elitist, correct?
That's correct. It's a volunteer program, and if we don't hit our targets by 2030, there is no regulatory ramifications.
Excellent. So it's not we're forming some global cartel who has climate change as their agenda. We are basically just doing important work, trying to save money, be more efficient, and do our part in protecting the environment. Am I correct on those?
Yes, you are. And the additional bonus is because we're part of this program, it's a little bit easier to get municipal funding from FCM and ECLI.
So even more savings to our taxpayers, correct?
If we're successful in getting those, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions? I see no other questions. Thank you, Ms. Parker. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Thanks for everyone who participated today. I have a resolution from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council 1 rescind a portion of the March 9th, 2020 below direction by deleting 40% and replacing with 20%. Therefore, be it resolved that Council adopt a reduction of 20% of the 2018 total corporate emissions of greenhouse gases by the year 2030. Number 2, approve option C as outlined in the recommendations and options analysis section of this report. 3, direct administration to return to City Council through the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee for approval of any of the objectives identified in Partners for Climate Protection. Option C as follows. A, capital projects to be submitted to future capital improvement program deliberations. B, initiatives requiring operating budget changes to be submitted to future operating budget deliberations. And number 4, direct administration to return to City Council through the Governance Standing Policy Committee for approval of any policy implementation or changes to approve of any of the objectives identified in Partners for Climate Protection, option C. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our staff for their work on this, and thank you to the residents in our community who have come to speak to this. As I often do, I'm going to focus on the economic benefits of this motion, that these projects have an ROI and will save our residents in the long term. And my objective is always around how we can save money while growing the economy of our city. As we've heard, this is not a spend for today. These projects will come to us in the future and will be approved as they come to us. And as they come to us, they may or may not be approved, and that these projects will undergo a cost-benefit analysis before they do come before us. The projects are part of finding efficiencies and overall cost savings for the city so that we can invest those dollars into other projects. These projects will help us reduce the costs or overall operating costs and see long-term savings to the residents of the city of Lethbridge. And this allows us to take advantage of other programs that can assist us in finding cost savings and efficiencies. Further, these projects are part of other master plans that we as a council have already approved in order to meet our operating costs. These projects are process improvements, and we should always be looking for cost savings and a way to contain our spending. In looking at this is something we asked our staff to do at a previous economic SPC in our asset management planning. This is a relentless focus on critical infrastructure and restriction on our spending. It's a way to reduce operating costs and still a way for us to take advantage of grant funding at other levels of government and what they might have available to us. I would ask for my colleagues' support on recommending this to Lethbridge City Council.
I understand Councillor Middleton Hope.
Also for debate. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Good. I'm not in a position to vote today. I'm not a member of this committee, although I am a member of council, which precludes me from voting on this particular initiative. However, were I in a position to vote today, I would vote no to this initiative, to all of the options proposed and a recommendation. I can assure my colleagues I look forward to a rigorous debate when this matter comes before council. I suspect that there will be changes globally in terms of a new government that we have in Ottawa, which may change its priorities, and this program or portions of it may be in jeopardy. Yes, accountability is absolutely critical, and so is economic expenditures of this city. So I am not in favor of pursuing this further. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in for debate? Councillor Croson.
I will be voting in favor of this. I actually like saving money and maintaining the assets of the city, and this is a smart way to do this, so I will be voting in favor of it.
No other debate? I too will be in favor of, I think as Councillor Schmidt-Rempel explained nicely, and I believe our administration answered a lot of great questions that came forward, and things can certainly change. But this will also be forwarded on to council for a final ratification. But for now, I will be in agreement of the resolution. With that, yes. All right. With that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay. Passes unanimous. Thank you. I have a submission here from 6.1, Ahmed Ali, Transportation Engineering Manager, read the status update